the virtual format of today's meeting, I'd like to start by providing some guidelines. So we have participants attending by computer and others who may be attending by phone. Now, we also have some simultaneous Spanish interpretation in the background. So therefore, for all meeting attendees, please follow these guidelines. Speak clearly and pause frequently. State your name and each time before you speak. And remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking at all. Now, if you're having any technical issues whatsoever at all, try joining the meeting using a different smartphone or tablet. Maybe that's what I should have done today before we started. Um, so also use the call-in information in the meeting invite to call into the meeting as well. So let's go ahead and call to order. So Monica, are there any excused absences?
Hello, Tony and board members. Good evening. This is Monica Negrilla. We do have an excused absence from Shay Fleming, our chair. She's traveling for work tonight. And we do have a couple of other board members missing, but I believe they're traveling on vacation, still summertime. And so with that, Lorna is not here yet tonight, and Ray, as well as Jacob.
Okay. Thank you very much, Monica. And Monica, would you, I'm going to go ahead and start and begin by roll call, but I don't have the list in front of me, Monica. Would you mind going through the roll call if you don't mind?
Yes, absolutely, Tony. Yes, would love to. So we can go ahead and do roll call. I'll call your name and please state that you are present or here. We're going to start with Alyssa Stewart.
Present.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome. Megan Richley.
Here.
Hi, Megan. Welcome. Good evening and congratulations, board members. A reminder, this is Megan's last meeting as she's going on to college and bigger things in life. So hopefully at the end of the meeting, we can say a good, nice farewell. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Well, it's kind of so sad.
Oh.
Anyway, on with the roll call.
Yes, so nice to have you. Hope you stay in touch. Helen, welcome. Good evening. Helen Kibenja.
Present here. Trying to do this. Yeah, there you go. I'm here.
There you go. Good evening.
Yeah.
Lorna is absent. Lucrecia Choto.
I'm present.
Welcome back. Ray is also absent. Ray Manahan. Shay Fleming is absent. Tony.
I am here.
Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
Cristina, good evening. Buenas noches, Cristina. Or buenas tardes. Cristina, can you hear us? Interpreters, are you able to make connection with Cristina? Not sure if she can hear us or see us.
Because she's connected by her phone, we can't interpret for her over the phone, so she was going to listen in until she got home.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and then she plans on joining after via computer, so you can provide interpretation.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We can come back to that. And I just noticed that Ray joined the call. Good evening, Ray. Ray Manahan. We are doing roll call.
Good evening. Sorry I'm late.
Welcome. Thank you. And continuing with roll call, Kelly Mann.
Here.
Good evening, Kelly. Welcome. Pretty Moldy Pan.
Here. Good evening.
Good evening and welcome. And last but not least, definitely Jacob, and he's not here with us tonight. That concludes the roll call, Tony.
Thank you very much, Monica, and thank you for those who are present today. I've got a couple of more not necessarily rules, but guidelines to follow on our calls. So for any commissioners, please, to indicate a desire for all of us, to indicate a desire to speak, make sure you send in the chat, to all panelists. Make sure you do that so that we see it, and type a question, type question or comment. That'll let us know that you, of course, have something to say. Then wait to be acknowledged by the chair, and then please do not put any substantive comments inside of the chat. So for anyone who's on the phone who can't, let's say, see chat, we will intermittently check in with you, and we'll determine if you have any comments and whatnot. But you can also press *3 or *3 to raise your hand. Now, for if there's any public comments ever, I'm just going to go through this anyway. Public comments are, of course, they're an important topic, right? They're an important part of the public process, and we take them seriously and factor them to all of the decisions that we make. For the members of the public joining, of course, you're definitely welcome. And if there's anyone in the meeting that will come in, let's say later or whatever, maybe who joins late, who would like to make a public comment, and these are, something we always want to follow when we have, of course, when public or members are present. Please raise a virtual hand to do this. And if you're on the phone, press *3, I'm sorry, *3 as you normally would, let's say, if you're a board member. Now, if you've joined by the computer or smartphone, look for the hand icon. Now, this is going to vary by your device, whether it be Android or, of course, or Apple. But one option may be to go to the participant panel and select your name and then choose raise hand. It may also be located under the reactions menu or the more menu. Okay. So, Monica, did we have anybody that's signed up for public comment tonight?
Not tonight, Tony. No, we don't have anyone for tonight.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So, once again, for anyone, make sure that you unmute your microphone when talking, mute your microphone when not. And I guess we are ready to begin with our agenda. But before we do that, so let's see, before we do that, let's see if we approval for the minutes. So we definitely want to take a look at the minutes from the last meeting. So invite all of you. Has everyone looked at the minutes? Do we need time to go over and review the minutes from the previous meeting?
I think Kelly had a question. I see something in the chat.
I did not see that. Thank you. Kelly, go ahead if you want to jump off mute and give us your question.
Sure. I have a question about how we do the minutes and then how we document things that we need to do. Because I noticed that the minutes are pretty much, we had a discussion, questions were asked, answered, and not really detailed. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because a couple of us had mentioned after public input last time that we'd like to have a continued discussion about both how we do public input, perhaps in a different way, a more welcoming way, and even larger, how we handle our own work so that we're very inclusive. And these were brought up by me and Preeti, I think. And so I wanted to follow up with, how do we follow up on that? Is it in the minutes? Do I text you, email Monica? What do I do?
Thank you so much for that. That's such a great question, Kelly. And so depending on what it is, we can have a separate agenda item on that. I did make notes for us, and I was going to create a separate agenda item for actually us for tonight to talk. But then since we had guests and the agenda was becoming a little bit too full, I put it as another topic for a later time. So typically, if you have new ideas for us to discuss, we would create a new agenda item. You can also as an option, bring it up, especially if we have time and the commission is open to that. We can bring it that under other business and talk in more detail on that. I think our challenge for previous meetings and so far has been we get busy with other agenda items and there's not much time to talk. So again, even for tonight, if you have that time, we can talk about it under agenda under other business, or if not, I have it for an upcoming meeting for us to have it as a separate agenda item to have more time allocated. Because again, I think that falls under even rules and regulations to review those as we first started. So it's a bigger conversation for us to have on how we conduct business, how we do community engagement, and all of that. So really, it's going to be up to you as a board. But typically, if you come with new items, we will just create a new agenda item for them. And
So I'm going to circle back to the minutes. So so it looks to me like there's like a format for the minutes, and so it doesn't put those type of actions or potential actions. Is there a reason?
And so if you want, we can certainly put those in the minutes as well. We keep the minutes pretty brief typically, and really we just put more information if there's an action that the board took on. Typically, I did not put lots of details on ideas, but then we can put ideas if you would like as a board, like, okay, this idea was brought up, so we don't forget about it. We can certainly add that to the minutes. That is a valid point, and we can certainly do that. But yes, typically we keep the minutes pretty brief, and we historically didn't put those in the minutes, but that's something we can certainly work on.
And maybe
that's
that's
something that the board would like to. Yeah. Okay. Yes, let's do that. That's going to be an easy, quick. And I see Lucrecia also has comment question on it, perhaps.
Yes, I was absent last during the July meeting, but I want to say that this is something that I have brought up consistently as well from a while back. And I would like for us to make a decision that is concrete about having items that are pending, either like pending or tabled or some sort of wording, like a header, and then we can list whatever it is that is there, because I feel like otherwise it's easy to table things indefinitely.
Yes, no, great ideas.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
It feels like meeting once a month becomes more and more difficult. There are just so many things we want to accomplish. But yes, absolutely. I think great ideas. Let's add them to the minutes.
All right.
And then perhaps let's spend a little bit of time today at the end of the meeting to kind of like prioritize what do we want to tackle next and first, so we can prioritize meetings.
Okay.
Great suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely great. And does anyone else have anything else to add to that? All right, I'll take the silence and crickets as no. All right, so I want to definitely allow time for review of the minutes if you need that. So I'll just give maybe a minute or so, or a couple of minutes to review that. Then I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes. But it'll just give it a little bit of time for everyone to have an opportunity to review if you have not. But if you've already, that's a short amount of us here today. So if you have reviewed the minutes, if you're just raise your hand, just give me a sign of approval real quick, and I'll just go ahead and ask for a motion to approve. All right, so Kelly's good, and it looks like some others are going through. Pretty is good. Everyone, Alicia is good. Megan, all right. Okay, so I think a majority of us have done that. Hello, Helen. Helen says yes, and sorry I didn't say hello when you were coming in, Helen. I was rushing upstairs. So, okay, all right. So, I'm going to make a motion here to approve the minutes. So, does anyone can give me a motion to approve the minutes? I move to
approve the minutes as presented this evening. This is Lucrecia speaking.
Thank you, Lucrecia. And do I have a second?
Second. Oh, I can't.
That's right, Kelly.
I second.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I'm assuming we basically already had any a discussion on it, and there's no edits to it. So I guess we can go ahead and move on with our agenda items. So our first agenda item for today is the Visit Issaquah overview and collaborative opportunities in equity and initiatives. So we've got a great presenter on this, or the Director of Business Development. And Monica, would you like to introduce our guest today?
I would love to, Tony. Thank you so much, board members. And just a note to a previous agenda item. I think it's clear. It's assumed that with no changes, you all approve the minutes unanimously. So I didn't want to make a note on that. But moving on to our guests.
Thank you, Monica.
It is such an honor to introduce Christy Gerard from Visit Issaquah. As you may remember from a couple of weeks ago, an email that was sent to you, board members, we received an invitation from Visit Issaquah to attend as an equity board a representative to attend a lunch with Visit Issaquah, the Issaquah Chamber of Commerce, our Economic Development Department, as well as the Greater Seattle Business Association, the LGBTQA plus, basically their Chamber of Commerce as well. And the goal of that luncheon was really to brainstorm and find ways in which we in Issaquah can become more inclusive to any potential visitors, but also just more inclusive in general. It was a great lunch, an opportunity for us to connect. And with that, Christy today is here to introduce her work with Visit of Issaquah and perhaps have a great conversation with you all on opportunities to collaborate in the future. I thought that this is timely and it really aligns well with the work that the board is doing, especially with our community engagement committee that we created, and the interest of this board to really reach out more to businesses and really identify opportunities to advance equity in our city. So I'm just gonna leave it up there and invite Christy to introduce her work. Welcome, Christy. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you, Monica. Can I share my screen?
I can give you that option. Yes, give me just a moment.
Thank you. And while we're waiting on that, I'm Christy Gerard, and I've lived in Issaquah since 2007. We live in the Issaquah Highlands community. For the last 12 years, I was the executive director for the Issaquah Highlands Council, a community building nonprofit, and have had the honor to interview and accept this position with Visit Issaquah just starting in March. And I'll talk a little bit more about that journey in just a second. Are you able to see my screen? Great. The one that's okay. The one that says Visit Issaquah, not my home screen on my computer. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's get started. So Visit Issaquah is the destination marketing organization representing the city, and we were founded in 2018. And some destination marketing organizations, or you'll hear me refer to this as DMO. So some DMOs are part of chambers of commerce. Some DMOs are part of a city department, of a local municipality. And sometimes they are standalone nonprofit organizations. Visit Issaquah is a standalone nonprofit organization. So I report to a board of directors, and the board of directors are made up of representatives from Issaquah's hospitality industry and a representative from the city of Issaquah's economic development. I also work very closely with the Issaquah Chamber of Commerce, with our economic development department, and looking forward to working with this equity board as well. So the way the reason that a destination marketing organization exists is that the state of Washington collects a lodging tax on hotel overnight stays. So, you know, when you book a room and you think you've booked a room rate, and then there's all those added fees, some of those fees are called a lodging tax. We call that LTAC in the DMO industry. And the state of Washington collects that lodging tax and then reallocates it back out to cities in Washington. And then that money has to be spent on promoting the destination, promoting tourism in that city. So Visit Issaquah is 100% funded by lodging tax dollars. Now, we don't get all the lodging tax dollars given to the city from the state. The city does hold back some of those funds and helps provide grants to other nonprofit organizations that are hosting events. And a great example of that would be the Salmon Days Festival. Now, there were not a lot of lodging tax dollars collected in the last 2 years during the pandemic because people were not traveling. So the board of directors pretty much let Visit Issaquah just go dark because tourism promotion wasn't really appropriate. But as we are beginning to recover, the board of directors decided to create the position of the director of business development, posted for the job, and I applied and was fortunate to be chosen. And I am so excited to be in this role because I really feel like my time in greater community leadership in Issaquah and the context that I have with our area attractions and nonprofits really position me well to help Issaquah's economic recovery from the impacts of the pandemic. So again, not a part of the chamber, not a city employee, but work very closely alongside of those organizations. Now, Visit Issaquah's mission is to attract overnight stays, right? We want to attract visitors to Issaquah that spend the night so we can collect that additional lodging tax money so that we can continue to do good work on behalf of our hospitality industry and all small businesses that benefit from visitors to Issaquah. So I'm primarily targeting the outside the 50-mile range of Issaquah that would be a reason for someone to come so far that they would stay the night. So just to give you a little context there, and we'll move on. Let's see. Okay, so some interesting information collected by Washington State Tourism. Some points that they released from a report in early July. And I'll just go through them briefly. And it's important to understand, these are great points to understand the value of why a city should have a destination marketing organization. One is that people do not visit places that they do not know about. And people don't visit unless they are invited. So having marketing campaigns that reach out to that beyond 50 miles and get Issaquah discovered by travelers is really a really important piece of the work that we do at Visit Issaquah. There's a visitor category according to the Washington State Tourism called Pathfinders. And these people are travel lovers who are active, interested in learning new things, and eager for both the urban and rural experience. And I think that really aligns with how you would describe Issaquah in having both an urban and rural appeal. Next, visitors like to dive into experiences that can be described as authentic and transformative. And I think we would all agree that that Issaquah is very authentic in who it is. And anytime you get an opportunity to get out on one of our hiking trails or out on the water of Lake Sammamish, no matter how long you've lived here or how many times you've done it, that experience is always transformative. According to Washington State Tourism, the average trip spend in the state of Washington is $1,092 per travel party per night. And advertising generated a return on investment of $33 in visitor spending for every dollar invested in paid media. That's an incredible ROI when you're talking about marketing. So the state of Washington Tourism did a survey, and Washington State ranked as the top destination to visit in the coming year compared to our competitive Western states of those people surveyed. And visitors spent more and stayed longer and did more activities on their trip of those that were surveyed. So I mentioned earlier that attracting overnight stays is a priority of Visit Issaquah. There's 3 kind of interesting trends in the tourism industry that I thought I would share. One is bizcationing. And as we're all on a very important meeting in a virtual setting, you can be anywhere on the planet and take these kinds of meetings. And bizcationing, where you travel to a destination, work and live like a local, is a big trend. So that's something we're going to pay close attention to. Additionally, environmental tourism. Travelers are looking for experiences that are related to sustainability. They want to stay places that have good sustainable practices, those sorts of things. And then social benefit tourism is also a trend where people want to travel and have a meaningful volunteer experience, leaving their destination a better place. So for an example, I've been talking with the executive director of the Issaquah Alps Trails Club about trail improvement work in the future that might lend itself to be promoted to people who are interested in this type of tourism, to be able to come to Issaquah, spend a couple days, and get their hands dirty at the same time, feel good about it. So we'll see how that works out, but these are interesting trends. Now, my primary focus for overnight stays is currently for the business traveler, and there's 2 types that I'm targeting. One is called Smurf travel, and not the little blue people, but Smurf is a destination marketing industry acronym, and it stands for social, military, education, religious, and fraternal organizations. So these are smaller groups that Issaquah can easily accommodate in the hotel spaces that we currently have. We can't compete with the Maidenbower in downtown Bellevue, and so we're so thankful that that venue exists for those big conferences that come into our region. We have a beautiful ballroom at the Hilton Garden Inn, but we don't have a lot of breakout space. So we're limited to the size of conference that we can attract. So I'm focused on the smaller conferences, board retreats, strategic planning meetings, reunions, and also building out on our website team building experiences that a meeting buyer would look at and say, this is really going to help my employee retention. We can go to Issaquah, we can meet, we can do an activity together. They have so many cool things in Issaquah, and really help employee retention, which, as we all know, is a big topic in business today. The second category in the overnight stay direction is on extending the business traveler, extending business travel of vendors and regional employees. For example, visiting Costco, REI, Sanmar, Talking Rain. These are bigger headquarter examples based in Issaquah. They have vendors and regional and national level employees, international employees that come in from time to time. And I want to put together curated experiences that encourage exploration of our area, so that if they're coming in for business, and I'm working with Costco's internal travel team as an example, I want to provide information that they can share with their employees that they're booking their travel to Issaquah, and introduce all the many things that there are to do when they're here, and hopefully they will stay another night or stay the weekend. And even better, bring the family next time and let the one parent get out with the kids and enjoy those types of things, and then the other parent can join in the second day in another curated experience. So we're working on making it really easy to understand what there is to do in Issaquah on any given day. So look for those improvements to our website coming soon. Here's some examples. These are just mock-ups of ads. This is not what we're running with, but just to give you a visual idea of what I'm looking to curate, a stay and play. And this would really speak to that business traveler who brings the family and they do the Swamp Monster kids hiking trail, and then they head over to Boehm's Chocolate and maybe tour the candy factory or take a chocolate making class, and then have lunch or dinner at XXX Root Beer. Those are all really relatively close together and would make for a really nice full day for a family traveling from out of town. Another creative solution that I am exploring, because we lack breakout rooms for conferences, is I'm working with a larger organization that wants to host their annual conference in Issaquah in the fall of 2023. So they will stay at the Hilton Garden Inn, and their general sessions for the conference will happen there. And then we will put them on shuttles and bring them down to Front Street, and the breakout sessions will be in some of our local businesses and meeting spaces during the off hours. So Capri Cellars, Vino Bella, the Train Depot, Big Picture, these are businesses that wouldn't be open in the morning, and we'll do the breakout sessions in those spaces, and then shuttle them back to the hotel in the afternoon. So we have had, we've booked the conference. We have agreement on the Hilton side of the conference, and we've had introductory conversations with the businesses on Front Street, and they've all been very positive and excited about the idea. I've personally experienced this type of setup. I attended a conference in April in Ellensburg, and we stayed at this quaint little historic hotel in downtown Ellensburg, and the breakout sessions were in the local businesses. And I have to say, and if many of you have been to conferences, you sit in a vanilla boardroom, you fly into a destination, you sit in a vanilla boardroom, and you never get to see the place where you are. And this experience in Ellensburg, I got to explore the really quaint downtown of that area, stop into local coffee shops, window shop. And when you put this conference I'm working on, it will be 200 attendees. So when you put 200 attendees on Front Street during the day, it will just really bring attention and to the economic vitality of Issaquah. So this is something I'm working on, and just excited to share more information as we get that developed. You know, and you can't, you can't not promote adventure in Issaquah. You know, we are world renowned for paragliding, and for the right organization with the right budget, this could be a really a great attraction to say, come have your team retreat in Issaquah, book a bunch of tandem rides, and that'll equal team retention, because who wouldn't love to work for a company that funds your opportunity to fly? So that's just an idea of what I'm working on. You know, another concept, I have an organization out in North Bend. They're called Compass Outdoor Adventures, and they facilitate team building experiences for companies. And they do hiking, they have a fleet of bikes, they do mountain bike tours, they also have electric bikes for those who need that little extra support. They're professional facilitators. They work with organizations like Facebook and Amazon and Microsoft and all the biggies. And they're mobile, so it doesn't have to be in North Bend. And so we have some of the most incredible mountain biking trails in the region, and I would love for the right for the right business that has a lot of outdoor enthusiasts on their team to book something like this where the meeting happens, but the business conversations continue on the trail. Now, lots of people really appreciate the beauty of Issaquah, but they're not really into the hiking and that sort of thing. So another really unique opportunity to Issaquah is we've got an incredible makers scene. So we have environmental artists that have brick and mortar buildings, and they offer workshops, and they make a great team building experience for the right group that wants to come where it's beautiful, but not necessarily interested in getting out on the trail. You know, we have Northwest Makes, which teaches you how to make dyes from the local flora in the area. You go out and forage your leaves and grasses and flowers, and you learn to make ink, and then you make a block print, and then you decorate a textile, and that's your take home. But can you imagine a group of people that are crafty inclined, but they're there to talk about a strategy for their business while they're doing something creative with their hands? I think it really spurs creativity. You know, another example is our beloved Boehm's Chocolates, and doing a team building retreat where you take the team and everybody makes chocolates and gets to take them home, and who wouldn't love that? Those are only two examples of multiple that I'm tracking for our promotions. So the reason why I'm here, so that's a little bit about what we're working on at Visit Issaquah. But because the organization was pretty quiet for the last 2 years, I have the opportunity to bring Visit Issaquah back into the light, to get us discovered regionally through the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So my marketing and who I'm marketing to will be targeting the LGBTQ plus community, the BIPOC community, and disability advocacy organizations. Monica mentioned that we hosted the GSBA on last Wednesday for lunch. And the GSBA is basically Washington State's gay chamber of commerce. And they have curriculum that they go into, you know, they're a chamber of commerce, so they have curriculum, and they will come into your city and facilitate a topic of your choice. And so in October, I'm working with Monica and with our Chamber of Commerce and with the Economic Development team to have a inclusivity education day that'll be facilitated by the GSBA. We will, you know, I'm focused on the hospitality industry, the chamber, the city, and your team can, you know, we can throw that net as broad as we want to in terms of people who want to be included in this. But I can't go out there and promote that Issaquah is inclusive, because Visit Issaquah is inclusive and the city of Issaquah is committed to inclusivity. But if our businesses aren't also bought in and understand what it means in the workplace and to their customer base, then we are not doing it authentically. And the GSBA has curriculum that will come in. It doesn't cost us anything to really dive deeper on what that means, so then we can feel authentic about the marketing that we launch. Now, this is a passion of mine. I'm on my own personal journey. My husband is half Vietnamese and the firstborn American citizen in his family. This is important work, but it is also a business decision. I'm looking to gain market share of these travel dollars from these types of travelers. I've done some research, and there are no other markets of our size that are making a conscious decision about who they're attracting as it's represented in their marketing. So it's a business decision as well as it is the right thing to do. So I'm just about done here, and then I'll take your questions. These are some of the organizations that I am working with and exploring that I just kind of wanted to share that really tie back to the work that you will be doing. So Travel Out Seattle is a program of the GSBA, and in the fall, they will be rebranding to Travel Out Washington. And because I have made Visit Issaquah a member of the GSBA, I've been invited to their advisory committee in November. Issaquah will have a seat at the table as they start to rebrand, and we'll get to be there from the beginning to really be a part of that work and encouraging the LGBTQ plus travel to our city. Last week, I had the privilege to be on a webinar that the Love couple with Traveling While Black were the guest speakers. And so Courtney and I can't remember her husband's, their last name is Love. They moved to Seattle from the Midwest, and they started vlogging about their discoveries in the Pacific Northwest, and they have become nationally known, and they've just been given some international assignments to go and travel and vlog about it. Now, I attended a conference, not a conference, an annual meeting of Visit Bellevue back in the spring, and they had a consultant that spoke to the room who said that social influencers are 600 times more effective in marketing than a paid advertising buy. Blew my mind. Now, so, with the goal of marketing through this DEIA lens, working with a couple like Courtney and her husband to invite them to Issaquah would be wonderful to get that type of coverage. Now, here's what they do. They generally just love traveling, and they have a rating system. So they go and vlog about their experience. They have a really robust YouTube channel. And then they have a rating system that says, well, how easy is it to get to that destination? Was it easy to find parking? How fun was what they went to do? And most importantly, how welcomed did they feel? And that's huge. That's just huge. So I really respect the work that they're doing. It's important, and look forward to seeing how we can connect in the future. And then these last two boxes on the slides are for accessibility. And I could come back and talk about either one of these programs for 30 minutes. So I'm going to just give you very, very high level for the sake of time. But Making the Invisible Visible, Hidden Disabilities is a national organization, and they use the sunflower as a visual cue for someone to wear on their body to indicate that they have a disability that is hidden. And so a great use of this in some locations are airports are using this sunflower. And so you get a lanyard. If you have an invisible disability, you get a lanyard or a lapel pin or a rubber bracelet to wear, that all their employees have been trained that if they see someone with that sunflower visual cue, they know that person might just need a little extra consideration. And an example of that, the founder was telling me that her daughter, who's 40 years old, is going blind, and she's already lost her peripheral vision. So she runs into stuff and knocks stuff over. But the people in her town know, because they've been trained in this sunflower program, that she just has an invisible disability. She's not, intoxicated or anything like that. And so it's just a really wonderful, welcoming way. So the way it might work in Issaquah is the Cougar Mountain Zoo might have a basket of rubber bracelets and a little sign that says what they're for. And a family that's coming with a child on the autism spectrum, they might put that rubber bracelet on that child. And then everybody, all the staff at the zoo are trained to know what that means. And it just allows them to give that child some space and and be aware that they might have different needs. So anyway, it's, again, I could talk about it longer, but that's briefly. And then Alabama is a program that was launched in Alabama where families who have a member on the autism spectrum can have a practice night, overnight stay in a hotel of their choice that are within the program at no charge to practice traveling with that family member. And the way Alabama worked it, so the Alabama Tourism organization got grant money from an autism organization, and then they, Alabama Tourism ran the program. And basically they went into hotels that agreed to participate, did a 30-minute training on just what it means when someone, what kind of consideration someone needs when they have autism. And then they set up a website and worked with autism organizations in Alabama. So then a family could say, we'd like that free night stay. And then there's a whole nother step. Again, I could come back and talk about that, but they did a survey that said 80% of families with someone on the autism spectrum do not travel. But 90% of those surveyed said they would travel if they thought there was a safe space for them to go with their family member. I would like Issaquah to become a safe space for people who travel with someone with an invisible disability. So again, these are programs that I'll be working on in the future. I don't have anything to launch today, but I've got my eyes on this work, and it really does align with the work that you'll be doing on this Equity Commission. So you can follow Visit Issaquah online, visit issaquahwa.com. It needs a lot of revisioning and work since coming back from the pandemic. I'm the only employee, by the way, so I'm slowly getting it updated, but go to visit issaquahwa.com, click on things to do, you'll get the calendar. There's over 100 things to do, special events in Issaquah in the month of August. So something for everybody. Live music almost every night in Issaquah in the summer. Really cool. So check it out. Find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and my email address is right there as well. I'm on a journey. I'm open to your ideas. Really would love to hear from you. Love your feedback as we progress. And with that, I will gladly take any questions or comments that you have for me. And thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you all for volunteering your time to make Issaquah a more inclusive place. The work you're doing is really, really important, and it's noticed. Thank you.
Christy, it was a great presentation. I got to give you a clap for that. Very, very, very great presentation. You did a great job with this. Looking in the chat, let's see, I see Lucretia, you have a comment. I do as well. So Lucretia, would you like, as well as Ray? So I'll go ahead and let you go in order. So if you'd like to jump off mute, Lucretia, please go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So I had several questions, and I'm trying to like make it into a cohesive comment/question. I'm very interested in the possible visit of the blogging couple who discusses, like their experience coming into Issaquah.
Yes.
And I can tell you that it gave me pause. Okay, simply because I have not had the best experiences when interacting with certain businesses here in Issaquah. And as you mentioned, right, they have a robust YouTube. And so before we invite them, I just want to say that we really need to do some sort of outreach out into our community so that when this couple does decide to come to Issaquah, it doesn't turn around and burn us, right?
100%. Now,
right.
they can travel wherever they want at
Right.
any time they want, but for a personal invitation wouldn't come from me until at the very least we get that inclusivity training done and we get a read on how well that was received, because I completely agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And then I just wanted to say that I would like to see a place where events that are happening that may not be, I haven't visited your site, so I don't know if they are actually listed, but there are events that happen that we may not know are happening and that we could be benefiting Visit Issaquah through. And so one example that I can think of is that we had somebody reach out to a page that I run on Facebook called Squaw Mountain Families. And it was ultra marathoners who were going to be running through Squaw Mountain in the middle of the night because I guess they run in
Yes.
24-hour increments or something.
Yes. Yes. Squawk in
And
the dark.
yeah, so I thought, like, wouldn't that be great to really reach out to those sorts of ultra athletic people or whomever they are, and also to create events that are successful in other small communities and replicate them here.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I was thinking, like, for example, I'm from Portland. I moved here from Portland, Oregon, and there they have an event where everybody makes a boxcar and they plunge themselves down these hills, and there are prizes and whatnot. And my dream, since you said that you're open to these things, is to have something called the Big Squawk and have these boxcars come shooting down Squawk Mountain. And
So, so there's a nonprofit organization in Issaquah called Life Enrichment Options. They provide housing for adults with special needs, disabilities, so that they can have an independent living experience. And a fundraiser that this organization does, they have several houses in Issaquah, and a fundraiser that they do is a soapbox derby. And it has been a beloved and long tradition, very similar to what you described in Issaquah. It went away with the pandemic. I haven't heard if or when they would be bringing it back, but it was really successful because they would build these cars and then put a child that had some type of different ableness into the car for a thrill ride down a hill with another person. And so, so I think that would be great. I do follow, and man, we have a lot of that type of outdoor recreation stuff happening in Issaquah. We had a women's mountain bike race on Tiger Mountain in July. 70 of their entrants came from out of state.
right. I was actually going to point in that direction as well.
Yeah. And then just last week, or not this past Sunday, Sunday before last, we had Issaquah hosted the Seafair sanctioned triathlon for Seafair at Lake Sammamish State Park. So as I'm new in this role and kind of seeing what the seasonality is for these events, I'm reaching out to their producers and saying, how can I help you today? Or when the event is over, can we collaborate for next year so that I can work out getting a block of rooms for their entrance? So for the women's mountain bike race was called the Sturdy Dirty. And, and they didn't have a hotel partner for their event. And so I said, we need to get you a hotel partner next year. We want you to come back. And so same thing with the producer of the Seafair Triathlon. I'm like, we know that we've got runners in from all over the region. We need to do better for you in that area. But our organization's been dark for a couple of years. They don't know to look for me. So I have to get Issaquah discovered. I have to get Visit Issaquah discovered and keep building those relationships. So I'm kind of catching people late on this season, but I'm hoping that that's going to build business for 2023 and beyond. So totally agree with you. And please visit the calendar on the things to do at Visit Issaquah, and you'll be amazed at how much is going on. But if you see something that's not on there, reach out and let me know. And if it would be something you would take a family member visiting from out of state to do, then I think it's worthy of being on there. And I just reached out to what I call our Visit Issaquah partners. I call them my VIPs, and Monica is on that list and asked, for information on any third quarter events that are coming up to be added to the calendar. And so obviously promoting Welcoming Week coming up is going to be really important in September.
Thank you so much. And I have a ton of things, so I'll be reaching out via email. Thank you.
Excellent. I look forward to it. Love to have coffee if you want. So
thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Ray, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, Christy, thank you for that incredible presentation. While you were speaking, I actually went onto the website and poked around, and I'm amazed at the content that you put together. Thank you for putting an equity lens into your strategy. That's quite amazing that you target LGBTQ and the Black community. That's fantastic. One of the things as I poked around your website is I think what appeals to those types of travelers like the LGBTQ and Black or Mexican American, Asian American travelers is the fact that a city even has an equity strategy. You'd be amazed that they do that research. So if there's a way on that website to just even comment that the city of Issaquah is so progressive in their thought that the mayor has established an equity board, I think would appeal to a lot of travelers.
I think you're right. I do have an equity statement and a land acknowledgement statement on the website. You'll find that under the contact information is where it lives right now, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be in a more dominant location. And adding the fact that there is an equity board just really sweetens up, to your point, what a visitor from the LGBTQ plus or BIPOC community would be, would make them feel more assured. So thank you.
And yeah, one other comment too is travelers. They sometimes tend to. I know I'm one of those that don't like to stay in a Hilton Garden Inn or a Spring Hill Suites. So if there's a way to connect, people like to go to like Airbnb or VRBO to find something that has a little more local flair to it. That people open up their homes. If that's an option that you can incorporate, I encourage.
Yes, because you know what, you pay lodging tax when you stay at an Airbnb, and so it's on my list. It's a little bit harder to herd that information, but at least having a link to the Airbnb, general website and, something like that would definitely be a start. So I appreciate your thought from there. And for that unique stay, did you know that we have Treehouse Point in Issaquah?
No.
We have a lodging and retreat center in Issaquah called Treehouse Point. They have 9 tree houses that you can stay in, and then they have meeting space too. I recommend you check it out. It's not inexpensive. It's like glamping in the trees. But I've toured the area, their location, and it is absolutely magical. It's right on the river, and it's really cool. So yeah, we do have unique places to stay, and we can do a better job of sharing that. So
thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
And Preeti, would you like to hop off mute?
Sure. I think this builds off of Ray's comments. So I'm also looking at your website as you were talking. And so I applaud your desire to reach out to these different diverse communities. And similarly, I think to attract diverse folks into Issaquah, I think, I'm thinking about what is the draw for them. And it might be worthwhile to highlight women in minority-owned businesses in Issaquah as an attraction. And I'm also thinking about what other ways to center on their identities as part of what you make visible on your webpage. I know with what you talked about in terms of your marketing campaign, it seemed to focus primarily on folks of a certain professional level. So folks who are traveling for conferences and things like that. And that's a pretty narrow socioeconomic slice. And when I think about, BIPOC communities, there's a much wider range. And we also know, along with racism, it also follows like low income status and things like that. So I'm also wondering about what are opportunities to attract folks of different socioeconomic statuses to Issaquah. I know it has a different impact on the ROI, but I think that that's also an opportunity I would encourage you to consider here.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that city economic development is starting to consider how they could better track minority and women-owned businesses so that we need to focus, narrow a focus of intention, that we have that at our fingertips. Currently, we don't have that. Okay. And so it's not not a switch that I can flick easily, but I 100% agree with you that we need to be promoting that, and that it, you know, I serve on the Economic Vitality Commission for the city of Issaquah, and we want to attract that. We want to attract those women-owned and minority-owned businesses to Issaquah too. And so not just tourism, but like, you know, opportunity to do business in Issaquah. So yeah, that's work that is in progress. And I focus, so, and just so you know, the slides that I showed you were just mock-ups, visual ideas of what I'm looking to do. I'm working with a marketing agency, so it'll be way more professional and way cooler than what I showed you. But you get the gist of what I'm trying to go after. And we're doing that because we are in a season of economic recovery. We've got to get our hotel business back up and get those overnight stays going, and so that we have more money to invest in promoting the city. So it's an immediate business decision to go after that very, you're right, narrow traveler. But what I also want to make sure I'm really focused on is having the free category and tag on our events on our calendar, so that someone, and again, the website's a work in progress as well, but I want someone to be able to go to the calendar and type in free and have everything that's available to do at low cost or no cost be prominent, so that people do see that you don't have to, you know, there's a ton to do in Issaquah that doesn't cost money. But yeah, thank you. You're 100% right. I totally agree with you, and we'll get there together.
Yeah, and lastly, I'd put in a plug around language access. So thinking about translation
I have a
as you
Google,
move forward. Yeah,
we have that on there. We have a Google Translator widget.
I see it. Okay, up on the top.
It could
Okay,
maybe,
yeah.
but maybe to your point, it needs to be more dominant. So I'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So I also have a question. This is Tony Christie. Two questions and a comment. I'll go for the question first and then a comment and another question. You mentioned that the L tax, the funding, how that works in terms of the state. How's that dispersed? Is it basically, obviously, if someone stays at the Hilton Garden Inn or the Spring Hill Suites, does it work that way in which Issaquah would get the majority of that L tax, or is all the money put in a bucket and then it's just distributed in some fashion?
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer. Wally, do you know the answer to that question?
I do. Good evening, everyone. I'm Wally Bobkowitz, the city administrator. LTAC stands for Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. And so it's actually what is collected as the lodging tax, sometimes known as a hotel tax or transient occupancy tax in some areas. And so Issaquah collects 100% of that tax, which is assessed here in Issaquah. The money is then allocated locally by a Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. It is a creature of state law that any city that has a lodging tax has a committee that is appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council that then makes that allocation. And the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee membership is also dictated by state law, that it has to be made up of individuals who are employed by businesses that either generate the lodging tax or are eligible to receive the lodging tax. And those businesses that are eligible to receive the lodging tax are only those businesses that generate hotel stays from beyond, I think it's 50 miles.
50 miles, right.
And so that is all prescribed. It also is prescribed that a city council member serve on the LTAC, and currently Councilmember Russell Joe is that council member. He's also the chair of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. So they meet throughout the year. They review funding applications. Those applications are then submitted to the Issaquah City Council, and then they make the approval for those payments. So it's local tax generated and then spent through a local board.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. The other is one comment and then a question that relates to the comment. I think it's fantastic, Christy, that you're working with the Loves. Um, it's just, it's the nature of being Black in America. I utilize them as well as others a lot. My wife and I travel quite a bit, and so I think it's great. Lucretia had a great comment. Initially, I thought, okay, it would be nice to hear um, what the Loves would think without any prompting of our businesses, but would hate for because me personally, I would love to see the data that they would glean from that. Maybe not data, but their thoughts. Um, and I thought that, in a certain sense, I'd want it. In a certain sense, is great to prepare our business leaders and business owners across the Issaquah spectrum. But I also think, to Lucretia's point, is that it would be nice, Christy, and I know you're just a team of one, but it would be fantastic if you could contract maybe like a mystery shopping agency that
Yeah.
would actually go around to the local Issaquah businesses, people of color, and of different cultural backgrounds and cultural ethnicities, and go around to the Issaquah businesses, see what they glean from, the before the Loves actually even visit.
I think that that's an outstanding idea. I used to work in retail and we dealt with secret shoppers, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's very formalized in what that shopper is looking for. I think it would be an amazing committee for this board for people who might be interested in the inclusivity culture of our businesses in Issaquah. We don't even have to contract with someone, that come up. You could form a committee, and that committee could come up with, the 5 things that they're looking for. You're all out shopping. Just having that, in the back of your mind to just kind of fill out a little rating form, and then provide, talk about it on this committee to make recommendations to what could be done. But I mean, you can certainly share it with me, and I'd be happy to provide that feedback in an anonymous way to the the stakeholders that I serve, which is the hospitality industry, to say, hey, this feedback came back to me, and here are some suggestions on how you might improve that next time. The Loves talked about like going into gastropubs, where the decor is kind of kitschy. Like, it's not cool anymore to have a rebel flag hanging up in a restaurant. And, really considering the artwork that's hanging up in a fine dining establishment, and who's represented in the artwork on the walls, and just they're a lot, really important things to think more deeply about. Like, a business owner needs one more thing, but this is important.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah,
And I
thank
think
you.
it would be great if you wouldn't mind, at Monica's direction, of course, but to share that data with us as a board, because it would let us kind of really inform us on the work. I mean, we all know that there's work to be done, but it would give us a framework of how much work really needs to be done, not just with our community in general, but with our business leaders that are visited by, patrons of North Bend, Snoqualmie, Issaquah, and Bellevue.
Yeah, totally agree.
And looking at the chat, I do not see any other questions or comments. But Christy, would you be willing to share maybe your contact information in email, so that if others happen to have questions that later on, because I'm sure some may pop
Absolutely.
up, if you wouldn't mind doing that in chat, I would really appreciate it.
Okay, we'll do that. And then, Monica, I will, as soon as I get off this call, I will email you this slide presentation so that you can have it translated, or have it for the record for the meeting packet.
Thank you so much, Christy, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Great conversations, board members.
Yes, thank you all so much. I'm really, really proud of the work you're doing. Thank you for your time tonight.
Christy, thank you very much for your great presentation and for your expertise in what you do and what you are continuing to do in Issaquah. We really appreciate you. All right. So on to our next agenda item. I'm sorry, was someone going to say something? Was that you, Monica?
Tony, yes, I apologize for interrupting. Before we move to the next agenda items, may we just check in really quick with our interpreters and Christina? I want to make sure that interpreting is going on well now. I know earlier Christina was on the phone. Interpreters, Christina, are we back on track now? Everything going okay well? Should we?
Yes, we are interpreting for Christina now.
Okay, so just maybe perhaps a brief reminder for us to slow down a little bit in our conversations to allow interpreters to catch up as needed. Okay, thank you. That's all. Tony and board members, thank you.
Thank you for that, Monica. That's a very important topic or a very important point. All right, so on to our next agenda item. You heard Wally speak just a bit ago. Wally is here from the executive department, and he's the city commissioner. But Monica, would you like to introduce Wally? And then Wally, would you like to go ahead and present? And just let us know before you present, Wally, if you would like questions during the presentation or you prefer to just wait till the end. But go ahead, Monica. We'll let you go ahead and introduce.
Thank you very much, Tony and board members again. So yeah, we have the pleasure to having with us our city administrator tonight, Wally Bobkowitz, to introduce the work of our executive department. Board members, as you may recall, this is part of our equity assessment. We are in this process for the last few months, and we are going to continue for the next few months in learning how the city works, learning different details about various departments within the city, but also working and learning more about what's going on in the community in terms of equity. So for the internal part tonight, we have with us our city administrator, Wally Bobkowitz. Welcome, Wally. Good evening.
Great. Thank you, Monica, and thank you, members of the board, for having me this evening. I know you've heard from several of my colleagues over the last several months about some of the inner workings of how the city of Issaquah and perhaps more generally how cities work. And so I'm here to speak about the administration of the city. As you know, Mayor Pauley is the elected mayor of the city of Issaquah. She is serving the second four-year term that she was elected to last November. Under the form of government that we have here in Issaquah, the mayor is the chief executive of the city, and the mayor has the ability to hire a staff person to run the day-to-day operations of the city. So in September of 2019, Mayor Pauley brought me here to Issaquah to serve as the city administrator. Prior to coming to Issaquah, I was the city manager of Evanston, Illinois for 10 years. Before that was the city manager in Santa Paula, California for 7 years. And then have served in other communities in California since graduate school. So I've been doing the work in local government my entire career, having served 17 years as a city manager prior to coming to Issaquah in 2019. So my responsibility is to act as Mayor Pauley's agent to operate the day-to-day operations of the city, work with the departments to move forward her agenda and the city council's agenda. Of course, the city council, 7-member city council elected also for 4-year terms. So one of my responsibilities is to work closely with the city council in their operations, attend their meetings, attend their committee meetings. So as the city administrator, I have that day-to-day responsibility for managing the city. Within the executive department, there are a number of other individuals and functions I just want to talk briefly about. And Tony had said about questions. I'm not going to take too long in the preamble, Tony, so perhaps we could just do the questions at the end, if that's all right with everybody. Also helping the mayor has a chief of staff. Our longtime former city clerk, Tina Eggers, became the mayor's chief of staff about 1.5 years ago. And so Tina helps the mayor, especially with her local and regional advocacy work. The mayor is very active regionally in Olympia, and so Tina, as the chief of staff, has that responsibility. Tina also helps look after all of our boards and commissions. So she's responsible for the recruitment process, the interview processes that occur for our boards and commissions. Also in the executive department is the city clerk's office. Our city clerk, Tisha Geezer, is the secretary to the city council. She's also the official keeper of records for the city, and she is assisted by 2 additional staff members, deputy city clerk, who is responsible for helping Tisha with the management of the city council and the city council's committees. And then also there's a staff member really solely responsible for public records requests. We get literally thousands of public records requests every year, and it is a full-time person's responsibility to deal with those public records requests, either documents or emails. It used to not be that way in cities, but more and more cities are having to put forward a lot of energy and effort to respond to public records requests. So our city clerk's office is responsible for that, and we have one individual responsible for that as well. Another function within the executive office is the city attorney. The city attorney serves as the chief legal officer for the city. We recently made a change of city attorneys starting January 1 of this year. So Rachel Turbin-Corpin is the city attorney, and her firm based out of Bellevue is the contract city attorney for us. So the city attorney and her staff are not city staff members, but they are part of a larger municipal law firm, and so they represent the city in all legal matters, civil legal matters, I should say. There's a city prosecutor, which I'll talk about in a minute, but they're responsible for all civil legal matters, advise the city council and the staff, represent us in court on civil matters. The city has a contract city prosecutor, which is also managed through the administrative department, and they represent the city in criminal matters, mostly exclusively in the municipal court, which is here. So the municipal court is a part of the city, but is not run by the city. It's a complicated situation. I'm happy to talk about more if anybody's interested, but the prosecutor works for the city administration. Next, we have a deputy city administrator, Andrea Schneider. Andrea is responsible for the management of our public works and community planning and development department on a day-to-day basis. She also serves as our chief staff member dealing with transportation issues. So as we work with transit, Sound Transit, King County Transit, as well as our larger capital program, where the mayor appointed a task force this year to look at capital spending, and so Andrea has been responsible for that. And then there are 2 functional divisions that are also report to me and the city administrator. One is economic development. You've heard a little bit about their work, but we have a 2-person staff that is responsible for economic development, works with our stakeholder partners such as Visit Issaquah, along with Downtown Issaquah, the Issaquah Chamber of Commerce. There are merchant groups at Gilman Village, as well as the Issaquah Highlands. So they work closely there on economic development initiatives. And then finally, we have a sustainability manager, Stacy Vin McKintry, and Stacy is responsible for staffing our environment board, as well as the day-to-day responsibility for implementing our climate action plan, which is the city's sort of framework for fighting climate change and reducing carbon emissions. And so that function also falls within the executive department. So there's a lot that we have our hands on, certainly a lot of issues that come through this office supporting Mayor Pauley in her management of the city. So I'm happy to be here. Was very proud to be part of the creation of this board, and this, of course, as you know, came out of the city council's desire to look at how we are dealing with community safety issues and equity and accountability issues. So I was very pleased to be part of that. In my former position in Evanston, Illinois, was involved in creating a similar group in 2017. So had a number of years in working with a group in Evanston that was focused on this. We also hired a chief equity officer in Evanston in 2017. So I'm very proud of the hand that I've had, not only here in Issaquah, but also in my other jurisdictions that I've worked in. It's a really important issue. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Cities all over America are grappling with what's the right balance of initiatives and resources, and we are certainly among them. But I'm very proud of the work that we do. Certainly Monica and her team leading our external equity initiatives, and I know you've heard from Stephanie Johnson, our Human Resource Director, Lauren Knox, and members of their team on some more of our internal initiatives. One of the things I learned in Evanston, which was a mistake, and I didn't want to replicate here in Issaquah, was having was having one team of people do both internal and external equity. Because I learned you get overwhelmed by the external, and there's never the time to do the internal. So we've made a very conscious decision here in Issaquah to separate the staff resources. Of course, everybody talks to one another, but we want to make sure that we have sufficient resources both internally to address city government issues as well as externally to work with the larger community. So Tony, hopefully you had a long presentation to start the meeting. I don't want to, meeting fatigue is a real thing, especially on video. So I don't want to go on too long. But thank you for having me this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, thank you for that, Wally. I actually have a quick question for you. You mentioned the city prosecutor, and I was wondering about from a socioeconomics perspective, right, in terms of equity, what about individuals who maybe they're in a matter that involves something they need defense. Does that fall under the purview of King County, or does it fall under possibly Issaquah? So is Issaquah employee, let's say,
A public defender, we do.
Defender. Okay.
We do. And Monica, I think it would be great to have perhaps the prosecutor, and I don't know if you've had the municipal court judge here yet either about the community courts. But we don't talk a lot about the criminal justice piece of the city of Issaquah. I don't even know. It's strange to refer to it that way, but I guess that's exactly what it is. And we do devote a fair amount of resources under Washington state law. This is all locally funded. It's not funded by the county or the state directly, although the state does provide some funds to support these operations. But we'd be happy to have, I think you probably start with the judge, and as you would need to hear from other officers who deal with our court system here in Issaquah. It's really an interesting thing, and a lot of people perhaps aren't aware. The community court, for example, that we've started here in Issaquah was one of the first in the state, and it's still among only a handful of community courts where we work with people. It's not a matter of you broke the law, here's your sentence, but it's a matter the community court really tries to look at what was the core of the problem that brought the individual to court and see what can we do as a city and as a community court to address the problem versus simply handing down the punishment. And so I know Monica's been involved a little bit with the process that the court has had and the Issaquah court has had. So we'd be happy to have Judge Stewart, and he loves to talk about those things that we've done in Issaquah. So that'd be great. But yes, these are all functions that are paid for by the taxpayers of Issaquah.
And actually, we continue to work closely with the team at the court, as one of our human services staff is providing the case management, is working directly with clients who are involved in the community court. So there's a close collaboration in human services with our court. But it's a great idea, Wally, to invite our court, definitely Judge Stewart, start with that, and perhaps Christy as well, to talk about their work, and our public defenders and prosecutors as well.
All right. Thank you, Wally, for that answer. I'm looking through chat. I don't see any other questions in chat other than my own. I'm assuming there are no other questions at all. And all right. So, Wally, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you for being present and being patient with us. We would definitely love to have the judge at another equity board meeting and to learn more about the legal system.
and thank you for what you do, all of you. Your group was created very mindfully by Mayor Polly and the City Council, and I hope you get that feedback. I know several of you have been to council meetings, and I think have heard from members of the council how much they appreciate this. I just want to echo that and say thank you, and really whatever we can do from the administrative side. You have one of our best staff members in the entire city, in Monica Negrilla, taking care of you. So hopefully that's a good step in the right direction. But if there's anything else that you need, please let Monica know, and she knows where to find me, and we'll try to get you whatever resources you think are appropriate for you to do your job. So thanks for having me this evening, and I'm late for dinner, so I'm going to run home.
Wally, thank you for your support. We really appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, well, I think we are ready for our next agenda item, and we're moving along at a pretty fast pace now. So for the committee updates, the Amanda needs no introduction, but I will introduce him anyway, just at least by name, and we all know Ray. So Ray Manahan, the committee chair, please give us an update.
Certainly. I was just getting my notes together. So this is in regards to our community engagement committee. So I was looking at how many meetings we've had. We are heading into our 5th meeting on August 8th on Monday. So first thing I wanted to just touch on was I was just sending her a message. Megan, who's been part of our team, this is actually her last meeting with us because she's heading off to college. So we all need to celebrate her. She's been part of our community engagement committee, and we wish her we wish her all the best, and I'm sure she's going to have a successful 4 years in college. All the best to you, Megan. We are kind of learning that we need to observe more before we take action. So a lot of that is just aligning with the topics that are happening here. For example, that great presentation that was done by Visit Issaquah, and see exactly how do we engage from a community engagement lens in the work that we do to line it up. So those are the things that we're going to touch on. Kelly at our last meeting brought up some great topics just from an administrative perspective. For example, creating rules on how we as a committee come to this board and present topics that are worthy to kind of elaborate on. We talked a bit about long-term goals versus short-term goals. I think the short-term goals really are listening to folks who attend this meeting and see how we engage with them from a community perspective. And then from a long-term goal, I think we're going to continue to expand with just the connections that we built, but also continue to build more. We've made some contacts with folks like PCC Market. I was put in touch with some of their leadership there who actually have a staff that's focused on equity. So continuing to just introduce ourselves, make sure they know that we exist, and if there's opportunities to collaborate, we certainly will. There's other businesses too, but we also know we can't just focus on the large businesses, but also support the small businesses in the area. I would love this group's thoughts or the other board members or community engagement committee members, excuse me, who are on this board. So Kelly, Monica, Megan, was there anything that we are talking about today that you feel that I didn't bring up that would be worthy to get feedback from this group?
I'll speak to two ideas that we haven't moved forward on yet, but one was there's a writer in Issaquah who wrote a young adult novel that just won the Newbery Award, and it's called The Last Cuentista. Quite good, I read it. And maybe having her do something, with us on, a reading or something.
Yeah.
And the second was the King County prosecutor race in political world is probably the most significant race in November in the state of Washington, at least for us. And it would be useful for us to know what prosecutors do and why they do it, because there's something brewing out there right now, and I can't lean one way or another. It's politics, but I think there would be opportunity for us to educate on community court and prosecutors for that race, so that people can make informed decisions.
Great
And
idea.
also to kind of piggyback off of that too, midterms are also coming up. So to also kind of talking about how to register to vote or how voting or how the politics kind of work within Issaquah so people know where to go and they can vote because voting accessibility is a huge issue right now. I think we can really capitalize this opportunity to make it more equitable at least.
Also a great point. Thank you. Some other administrative topics that I wanted to share with Megan. Leading our committee, we were looking for a fourth, and Shay was kind enough to step up. So I did confirm with her that she'll be joining us on Monday. And I also don't want to forget Christina is on our team too. So a lot of that, a lot of collaboration requires her feedback. And I know that's coordination with our interpreters too. So I want to thank them. So again, our next meeting is on Monday, August 8th. I think it's at 4 p.m. And we look forward to sharing what we discussed there with this group. But a lot of it, like I said, is just determining what short-term and long-term looks like from this committee's perspective, and bringing back to this group some of those thoughts and ideas that we have for you to consider and approve. Questions on any of that from anyone?
Is there anything that you're maybe targeting right away? Any short-term goal, long-term goal?
I think the La Quintinsa book, I think that Kelly was talking about, was a good follow-up for us to read. I know I'm very curious about it. So having that, Tony, would be one of our boxes that we would need to check. I had some ideas about, again, with the outreach to businesses, but I personally really am sensitive to not just limiting this work to feedback from large businesses, but for small ones. And you know what that requires? Knocking on doors. So for us to just circle around. So if we could make that a topic of discussion at our next meeting, just to know, like, the small businesses on Front Street, that the equity board exists right here to hear you out. Whatever business you run, especially the ones that are run by different ethnic groups, would be good. So I'd like that to make that an opportunity to broaden our scope.
That's great.
Yeah, Monica?
Thank you, Ray. I think along with that thought, I remembered one of our conversations in one of the meetings was also perhaps going to one of the upcoming farmers market before the market ends. Again, just as an opportunity to meet and greet with the equity board. But we didn't have a chance to finalize a formal recommendation yet. So I know that, however, that was one of the thoughts, right, as well.
Yeah, good point. And so many things came into mind when visit Issaquah.com website, just poking around there, I had some ideas. One last comment from me. For the Community Engagement Committee, that appointment should be on your calendars, and you will notice the agenda is on there with our notes from the past meeting. One of the things that we said we would do was to circulate the roles of this committee. So I'm going to take a stab at that. So that was a great idea by Kelly. So facilitator, note taker, inviter. I'm going to make those assignments, but I want us to be okay with them. So expect that email from me by tomorrow. All right. Thank you.
And I see that, Preeti, you have a comment or question. Sorry, not a comment.
Yeah, so I was really, I think, Megan, you said it, like something around the election. This is so timely. And I'm just wondering if there is any energy around doing an event around either, I don't know if it's bringing some candidates in or if it's like understanding their perspectives on equity related topics or just something like that to help inform voters, or even if it's, yeah, like voter accessibility, where do you go to register? Like what would yield the best benefit for Issaquah? I think that's worth exploring more. So I just wanted to kind of upvote that.
Good idea. Megan?
And I think another thing we kind of brought up too in our meetings that Preeti just reminded me of is also how do we get more diverse candidates to run for those positions? So when we're talking about maybe like money is a huge factor in that and how like people run to be able to have those funds. So how do we as Issaquah make that not a factor and how do we get more diverse candidates, I guess, too? And that's a discussion we can have and also create a better format to where those people feel a lot more not not necessarily comfortable, more sustainable and confident that they earn that position and that they can sustain it, I guess.
That's fantastic. And I noticed that, Monica, you also have a comment?
Thank you so much, Tony, and board members. As I'm listening to you and as I have the privilege to be in this board meeting and in our committee meeting, as well as working with my staff on various events, based on the feedback that I heard from everyone, depending on availability and interest from you, I think we have on one end an opportunity to create an event that it's an educational event for the community, right? As mentioned, so right by Megan, it did come up before, equity around, elected leaders, but also it came up like questions on how to register to vote and what do prosecutors do and what do public defenders do and what's a community court. So there's an opportunity for that as one event, an educational event, and also. This falls kind of like under I had this under my staff reports, and I'm gonna just start with that and we'll continue. One of the events that I mentioned to you last time, there are two upcoming events that our human services team started working on. One is welcoming event, a week event, and then the second one is to honor Hispanic Heritage Month, in particular this year, also Mexican Independence Day. So we have a date set up for that, and I am happy to tell you a little bit more about details, but I think the inviting the author of the last Cuentista could be also an opportunity. So for two events, and it doesn't have to feel for all of you that you need to take on all of that. Again, we have already staff who are working on one of them or two of the events. Perhaps if you as a board or the community engagement committee would like to take on perhaps the one about elections, I think there's an opportunity for us to have a few really meaningful events in the fall. And I know that as a committee, we were discussing whether or not we want to ask a recommendation for the board, but I think this is an opportunity for you to recommend formally as a board if you would like to. Let's make it happen. And you can basically formally assign this and delegate it to the committee to work on. If the committee would like to do that, and you as an entire board would like to assign this event to the committee. I think you are on mute, Tony.
My mute button was working weird. So, Monica, do we need to take a vote on that?
So not necessarily a vote. I think you don't need to be that formal to make it a vote, but I think you can be in agreement if the entire board is in agreement. So it's not just a couple of board members to pursue it. Let's say organizing a community event around elections, voting, prosecutors, and whatnot. I think that would be enough for the community engagement committee to make steps towards that.
Well, I'm definitely in agreement with you. I think that would be great if the committee is willing to take it on. It doesn't have to be an answer right now, but I know it's a lot of work planning events like that, but it would be important work that we would love to have out there. But I also know that Alyssa and Lucretia, you have a comment. So Alyssa, please jump off mute if you like.
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback off of, I think it was Megan's comments about, things we can do, I guess, whether it's as the committee or the board or wider audience, to get more people, I guess, running in some of these elections. And I want to share that this week, my family and I, so we're from New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and we don't get a booklet like this one, if you guys can see, which is the King County voters pamphlet. We didn't get a booklet like that on the East Coast in either of those states that goes and has a statement from each of the candidates that's running in each of the elections. And my family and I, this was actually an impromptu entertainment this week, was going through and reading each of the candidate statements. If you haven't done it, even though the primary is done, I advise you to do so. And I really think that if there were more of us who understood who these people are who are running, that there'd be more other people who would say, I can't let that be. I need to stand up and run for, one of these offices. So I think real knowledge about who the people are who are running in our elections, it's very easy to see a polished picture on a postcard and say, oh, he looks okay. But then when you actually read what they are saying, I think it makes a big difference. I just think, communication somehow, and with the megaphone, as to these are the people who are running for things in our state, and is that really what we want? That's all.
Fantastic comment, Alyssa. So let's go ahead and move to Lucretia.
Thank you for that, Elisa. I completely agree. If people are not reading that voters pamphlet, they might be in for a rough shock, because some of the things that people take the freedom to write for themselves is quite frightening. But anyway, moving on to what I wanted to say is I wanted to bring to the attention of the outreach committee the League of Minority Voters. That's a national organization that exists, and they are in the process of starting a chapter here in Washington State. And so for civic engagement, ensuring that people understand how to access, how to register, etc., that is specifically what the League of Minority Voters does. They are nonpartisan, and so it is something that I feel more people need to be aware of existing. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lucretia. My comment was based on that, so you touched on it. So fantastic. Great. All right. Are there any other comments before we move on to the next agenda item? I wanted to give some time for that to see if there's any other comments. I don't see any in the chat, but I did want to give another opportunity if there's any other comments before we move on to our next agenda item. And since I'm seeing nothing, I guess we'll move on to our next agenda item. Ray, thank you very much. And Outreach Committee, thank you very much for your very hard work. We look forward to hearing a lot more from you and seeing what you're willing to take on in terms of events, as well as the information you're reporting back to the board. So we're very excited. So let's move on to our next agenda item, the staff report for of course, human services and equity updates. We have our fearless Monica Negrella, their human services manager.
Oh, Tony, thank you so much. I so appreciate you, board members. So there are many things I would love for us to discuss a little bit tonight. You might have seen in the agenda packet, you also have a formal presentation on human services. I know that this was requested several months back, and I did not want to forget about it. So I do have a presentation there. I could be very brief on that. So that's number one. I do have updates on upcoming cultural conversation events, as I mentioned, Welcoming Week and Hispanic Heritage Month. I do also have a couple of updates and thanks and shout outs that I want to give for a few things that happened this last month. And then again, I would love to spend more time on us I would love to use your help in prioritizing, as you mentioned earlier in the meeting, there were other items that were brought up by several of you, and there's just so much to do. I realize we have 4 more months in this year, 4 more meetings, and there's just so much work to do. I have a hard time prioritizing and fitting everything in. So I would love to talk a little bit about that. Does that make sense? So I have a big agenda for tonight. So with your permission, I would like to start with actually, I think what's the shortest is the 2 cultural events that my staff and I started working on. And we started working on this because even before creating the equity board, we as a city made a commitment to honor at least at minimum 4 to 6 cultural and cultural holidays and cultures in our city. We did not want to exclude anyone, but those were the ones that we felt like with the staff capacity that we have, we could do. And then in time, if the equity board would like to expand on others, we would love to welcome that. So again, Welcoming Week now, it's building a tradition in our city. We held Welcoming Week in some shape or form for at least 5 years, so that goes even before I came and was on board with the city. And for those of you who are not familiar, Welcoming Week actually it's a nationwide initiative, and the idea is to promote the spirit of inclusion and being welcoming to immigrants and refugees, those who are not US born, right? And so the city historically, especially in the last few years, we try to do that by having in-person or virtual events. Sometimes, this event is typically held in collaboration. It's not just a city event. We collaborate with the library system on it. They are part of the team who's working on it. We also have businesses, and this year we also created a chapter for welcoming economies, but we also work with the Downtown Issaquah Association on it. The Issaquah Highlands is partnering with us. The Latino Club historically partnered with us, and the Schools Foundation. So it is a large group working. We are excited. The event is going to happen. The main event, the main in-person event, is going to happen on September 9th. It's on a Friday. It's going to be at the community center on the lawn outside. We are going to have multiple cultures represented. It's definitely a free event. We're going to have food trucks, different dances, different events. So it's an exciting event, and we are going to start promoting it. So we hope that at least we also are going to have a large resource fair associated with that. We hope to have a table for the equity board and an opportunity for the community to meet and greet with the equity board at minimum. So more information to come, but I wanted to put that on your agenda as that's coming. And as I mentioned, there are going to be other smaller events, including, working with businesses. And then there's also, we are part of a more regional, the East Side economy. So there are going to be virtual and in-person events for that as well. And then you might have, if you remember, during COVID, we created a story walk during welcoming events. So we are going to do that. That kind of like was pretty popular, that tells the story of different immigrants. So that's for that. The second event, Hispanic Heritage Month, also this year not coinciding, but highlighting also Mexican Independence Day. Mexican Independence Day is typically celebrated on September 16. Hispanic Heritage Month is typically celebrated between September 15 and October 15. So we are going to combine those two. And our tentative date for that event is Saturday, September 17th. Our team is working on it. So far, we have just our staff working on, but we would love to also work with. I know that Kelly mentioned and brought up the idea of the author of the last Cuentista. One of the ideas that we are working on currently, in addition to inviting perhaps the author, is to invite different professionals who would provide free dance and movement classes on different Hispanic heritage type dances. So it's just a fun in-person event, an opportunity to socialize. Tentatively, that event will happen at the Senior Center. Again, more information on that. And I'm gonna pause to see if there are questions before then I move to the next thing. No questions? Great, thank you. So
Monica, what was the date of the?
September 17th, Saturday, September 17th, for the Hispanic Heritage Month, Mexican Independence Day, that's September 17th. Welcoming Week, September 9th, that's on a Friday.
Just as an FYI, the fish hatchery nonprofit is running a all-day event that day outdoors.
On the
right in front of
17th.
the hatchery. Yeah. Just
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful to know. We will go back and perhaps coordinate with them to see.
yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Okay. So that's that. For the human services updates, I'm looking at the time, so I would like to see if you would like, if what you have in the PowerPoint presentation, perhaps it's enough, if I should just answer questions about human services, if we should postpone, talk in detail now, and we'll go over time since we have other things that we would like to discuss. Skip it. I would like to spend some time, and more important than to me, the human services updates is to see how should we go about the rest of the year. So, any thoughts? Go with the presentation?
I'm sure you can. No, go ahead, Monica. I was going to say, I'm sure that you see the wheels turning in my head. I say, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'd say yes. Thank you for, yeah.
So yeah, I was gonna just say, are we up with a thumbs up if you are okay going over time for 8 o'clock and do the human services presentation and then also the conversation? Do we have the energy to go through those two and time? Okay, so I'm not gonna waste time. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna go through brief presentation on human services since you didn't have a chance to have an in more depth presentation. You heard early on in the year when Jeff Watling presented on the parks and community services, but I know there was interest in diving a little bit deeper. So give me just a moment. Oh. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. If not, please shout out. I do not see the chat or any of you. So just to give you a brief context, the Human Services Division, it's part of the Parks and Community Services Department within the city. We are one of the 4 divisions in the Parks and Community Services Department. And within our division, we have a section on community needs and planning, where we also support our nonprofit providers, and we provide funding to wide range of social services organizations. Currently, this year, we fund 57 different programs that range from housing and shelters and basic foods and meals programs to domestic violence, mental health, substance use, vocational services, educational services, legal services, and you name it, we probably offer it. And we are also providing staff support to the Human Services Commission. Most of that work is being done by, you might have met our Human Services Coordinator, Hannah Roberts. Then we also have our behavioral health and homeless outreach program. You have met last month Kaylin Woods, and you might have heard of Amir Shabana. Both of them are our behavioral health coordinators. We just recently hired Kaylin. This program is also new. We started the behavioral health and homeless outreach program just a little bit over a year ago. Together, the two staff currently provide a 7-day coverage to our services. In addition to homeless outreach, we also work with our police department for their behavioral health program. Often our police department receives 911 calls that are mental health or substance use behavioral health related. And so we receive referrals from our police department and we work with community members and residents in connecting them to the services they need. So altogether, as of today, this week, between the behavioral health and homeless outreach programs, we serve 215 residents. So quite a bit of work there. You also heard Wally talk a little bit earlier, and you might have heard us in the past. The municipal court created in August of last year, a community court. This is an alternative program to the regular traditional court system where the community court identifies individuals who have committed a crime, and when they determine that perhaps the crime was related more to their social service needs or to their living circumstances and not to necessarily a criminal intent, they enroll them in what we call community court, which is based on supporting the person and connecting them to the social services that they need in order to get out of this situation. So a simple example would be, let's say, a homeless individual who was trespassed from a private property, and so they understand that crime was really not related to a criminal intent, but perhaps to a need to seek shelter, and so therefore they might be enrolled in community court, and we would work with them in connecting them to the services they need. Of course, we don't always just see homeless individuals in community court. There are different levels of crimes, but the idea is always the same: to connect the person to the service, the social service that they need, rather than putting them in jail. If a person successfully completes all the asks and tasks assigned by the court, they can graduate, and their crime may be expunged from their record. Currently, we have one staff who's supporting the municipal court in that and provides the case management. Many of you have met Marisol Visser. She's the one who's working on this project. And then last but not least, we have the community equity initiatives. Again, as you heard Wally earlier mention, that it's assigned to our division, the community facing equity initiatives, and we are providing staffing for the equity board. So for that, I'm the main person leading those efforts, and whenever I can, I use the support of my staff to help with whatever is needed, from putting together PowerPoint presentations to closing contracts to chairs and all of those in the back works. So just a few words about all of these initiatives. The Human Services Planning section of our division, as I mentioned, really the role is to identify the community needs. Last year, we completed, Hannah and I worked on completing a large community needs assessment that led to the creation of our first Human Services Strategic Plan. You have a link to that in our package. If you have time, we would recommend for you to look through that. It was also a project that we worked with the Human Services Commission on. We were very, very intentional about putting the entire project through a robust equity lens. And so also I mentioned earlier that we also provide funding to a variety of nonprofit organizations. And for the 2021-2022 funding cycle, we had 3 types of grants. We had grassroots grants, again, with an equity lens. We also piloted initially in 2021 the homeless outreach program, which now in 2022 became a permanent program. And then we are now hoping to pilot in 2023 an emergency housing program. So all of that, it's in our kind of like planning section for human services. A lot of work being done there. I mentioned that we completed a strategic plan and we had a very intentional equity lens approach. And what we did in that project was we really identified the populations that are most impacted by our human services needs. As you may know, 7.8% of our population in Issaquah live in poverty. So really that was the focus of our work when we did the community needs assessment, to really understand what do those folks need in addition to the larger population. Of course, we always serve the entire Issaquah, but intentionally we wanted to focus on learning what do the communities who live in poverty need. Then within that, we wanted to identify the disproportionate representation of communities living in poverty. And again, if you read the entire strategic plan, you're going to see that we identified that 77% of those living in poverty are non-white. So again, we just wanted to intentionally identify that and call that out. And then that helped us to propose goals and interventions that help address those inequities. So based on that data, our community needs identified 4 themes. One was physical and behavioral health, housing continuum was another one, community resources, and definitely last but not least, language access and culture-specific services. So that was called out as a specific theme in our strategic plan last year. Again, more information if you have a chance to read it, and please reach out to us if you would like to further talk. I talked to you a little bit about the behavioral health and homeless outreach program, so I don't want to talk much more about that. I just want to call out the homeless outreach dashboard. You have the link in your packet. That is a community-facing data, really a dashboard that shows some of the work that we've been doing in that program. And also it shows not just the successes, but some of the limitations that we have in homeless outreach. I am proud to say that out of about 115 homeless individuals that we interacted with in this past year, we were able to successfully house in permanent housing 14 of them. As of this month, actually 16. I know that perhaps for some that does not sound like a lot. It is a lot and a huge success. Working with one person at a time, there are many complexities and challenges, and we can talk for many hours on that. So I mentioned to you that we have now 2 FTEs providing 7-day coverage. Again, a lot of systemic challenges, especially including lack of capacity not just for housing, but for treatment services, for any other support services that the person needs to start coming out of homelessness. Again, for more information, if you ever want to connect with us, meet, or come and ask more questions, please email our team at homelessoutreach@issaquah.gov. We talked about a panhandling campaign last month. You have a link there as well if you would like to talk some more. I'm not going to spend more time on that. And again, resources for shelter and food. I talked about community court. I'm not going to go in additional details, and we talked about the community initiatives as well. So I'm going to stop there and pause if there are questions before moving to our last topic.
There are a couple of comments, Monica. Let's see. Preeti, we'll go with you. I can't talk today. We'll go with you first.
Yeah, thank you. Monica, I just wanted to commend you and your team for kind of modeling that equity analysis approach. Like, I don't know if you've followed a formal postcard approach or something like that, but I think it's wonderful to see how you all put it in action with this planning process. So just wanted to give you kudos.
Oh, thank you so much, Preeti. I so appreciate it. Yeah, and we did not follow a necessary, like, I know we want to talk about the framework, postcard modeling in general or whatnot, but yes, we were intentional about, really providing that equity lens, right? Yeah, looking at the entire project through an equity lens. Yeah.
All right. So my comment, Monica, was about the behavioral health and whatnot for the homeless challenges that we have in Issaquah. And I wanted to thank you for, I know you were very instrumental in putting that together. It actually has transformed my behavior. So I wanted to just tell you that how it made an impact on me, and me telling friends and family about the same, and hopefully it's impacting them as well. I think I've noticed my family has maybe transformed a bit as far as that's concerned, and what we should be doing with our homeless friends and housing challenged friends here in the Issaquah area. So just once again, I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Tony. And yes, if we ever have time, would love to have a longer conversation, of course, on that. But I so appreciate the feedback.
Welcome. And looking through chat, Alyssa, I thought I saw you raise your hand. Did you have a comment?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Okay, my fault. All right, let's see.
But
Oh, I'm sorry, Christina.
Christina.
Would you like to give your to jump off mute and give your comment? And you have a question, actually. I'm sorry, not a question, but a comment.
Cuando se refería, Mónica, perdón, cuando se refería a la parte de que los blancos son la minoría que es más rica en Issaquah, se hizo también un estudio en base a los hábitos, valores y demás características que ellos tienen.
So about the people, when Monica talked about the Caucasians being the minority and the poverty level, did they also gauge their culture, their behavior, and their habits?
Thank you,
Si es así, perdón, si es así, me gustaría conocer qué tan viable es que se pueda, pues, enseñar esto, hacerlo más público de alguna manera como para aprendizaje de nosotros.
And if it's feasible, I would like, if it's possible, to make this information public, and that would be a teaching aid for us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, Christina. And actually, I'm so glad that you brought it up. A similar question was brought up before. As we interact with more and more people who are not white and they are not very rich, they don't have much money, we learn more information about the unique stories that everyone has. We don't have, though, to that data level enough information to go deeper compared to what we have. And what we have now, it's public. What's in the strategic plan is public. But we don't have, other than anecdotal information from the people that we interacted with, we don't have much more. As we'll learn more, then absolutely we will share that information and we'll publicize it. Right now, we have only what we have in the strategic plan. And rightfully so, actually, the strategic plan is not yet fully translated in Spanish. But I know that if there's interest on that, we can speed up that process. It's just, we would love to. I'll follow up in case you would like translated that document or even just part of that document.
Thank you for that answer, Monica. Let me make sure that I didn't miss anything in chat. If there's any other questions and or comments, let's see. Looks like that is.
I think Pretty has another comment. No? Okay, I apologize. Okay.
Pretty says no. Okay. All right. So let's move on to our next agenda item. I just wanted to see if there's our next agenda item is other business and or announcements. I don't think there's any other business, but are there any other announcements that have not been made? Monica, do we have anything else? I don't think so.
I was hoping board members, if we have a few minutes, yes, to do talk about the upcoming months and how would you like to, let's create a list of things that you would like to see on the upcoming meetings, agendas. Again, I don't want to forget about, the comments that Kelly and Lucrecia made at the beginning of the meeting regarding, this is part of a larger conversation. If you remember when you first approved the first rules and regulations at the beginning of the year, we said that as you learn to work with one another, you would like to look for opportunities to do differently on the board and perhaps make recommendations to the mayor and city council on, I know that there were ideas on kind of like shared leadership. How do you take turns with chairs? I know it came up last week on how do you interact with public comments that those make up. To me, that feels like almost a one entire meeting just by that. So what we can do, we can either schedule a special meeting perhaps as we start coming back in person, or we can create and have it sometimes, like either if you want to say, okay, we don't want to have any guest speakers in the upcoming month and just let's focus on that, we can do that. Otherwise, I wanted to let you know that we do have guest speakers scheduled all throughout until December. Next month, for example, we have the police department coming back with the economic development department. Again, this was also one of the topics that was requested. I reached out to some of the community equity organizations, the Issaquah School District Student Equity Council was gonna come tonight, but they're gonna come hopefully in September. We also have the Issaquah Community Cultural and inclusion grassroots community group scheduled for October. We have the school district equity department scheduled for November. So I personally struggle with, okay, plus we need to complete our assessment. So a lot, and the events, right? So a lot going on. How would you like to prioritize all of this? I'm sorry, tough.
Yeah, that was really tough, Mike, to follow up with some thoughts. Wow.
I see Lucrecia and Pretty both. Go for it, Lucrecia, Pretty after that, and Lisa, yes.
So for me, at least, it's really difficult to only receive information verbally, like you just sent or you just gave us with like, this is what's coming up. Like I really need to see it in writing. So I apologize that I can't really make a decision or comment really about like how would I like things to proceed. Is it possible? And I know that we need to notify, the public that we're doing these things, but I almost feel like, is there a way that you can send this to us via email and then, I don't know, put it out in the public so that they know that we're having this discussion around these issues and calendaring and voting on where we would like to go? It's just kind of where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Yeah, no, very good. I'm happy. Yes, I can certainly follow up with an email. I think we had it in the last month packet. I didn't put it in this one, but absolutely, I'll follow up with an email with everything that's scheduled for the remainder of the year, and then perhaps yes, we can receive feedback via email and then discuss it as a public at the public meeting as well. So thank you for that. Okay, I see a lot of good comments. Next was Pretty, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to make a recommendation, given how jam-packed those agendas seem and wanting to give enough time for a conversation around kind of how we're structured, how we engage with community members. I would lean towards special session and maybe one that's in person when we get to that time where we can be in person.
Okay.
I second
Thank
that
you.
recommendation, Preeti. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Preeti and Lucrecia. Yes, how about let's hear all the comments and then we come back to see perhaps if you would like to take a formal action on recommending a special session and we'll look at that. Elisa, Helen, and Kelly.
So I would say in that session, first of all, my recommendation is like Lucrecia said, was something in writing for us to look at. And then it's great to have a special session. I would suggest that we do that session kind of the way that we would do that session at work. It's a prioritization exercise. So you go through each item and get consensus from the group. Is this item more or less important than the previous item? And so that your end result is in the list in the order in which you want to tackle them.
Great. Thank you so much, Elisa.
Yep.
I'll go next. I totally agree with what everybody has said. Obviously, a special session looks like it because in 4 months or probably less before the end of the year, we will need to definitely prioritize. I was also thinking, can some of the groups that haven't had an opportunity to present to us take priority? I mean, while we're thinking about it, for example, I've not heard from the Issaquah School District, and there are 2 separate dates you mentioned for the Issaquah School District, if those can be combined with school starting. Obviously, I think it's on my radar. It's my huge interest. So most definitely prioritizing that. If the others have come and they're coming a second time, can that be a priority so that we have some sort of equal spread across the year for the different groupings that we haven't had from? And also, again, sorry, I think this was from before, the event that is happening on 9th. That is the welcoming event, right? I know it's happened before, and I've always wanted to attend it. I don't know why. It's either school has just started or that day it rains, it's outdoors. It's just always been one of those not very weather-wise, time of year, time of day. If it's going to be outdoors, if it's going to be inside the community center, and some of those things be put into consideration so that it's actually it attracts. I have always been ready with my Ugandan outfit ready to come and display it, but raining cuts and others. And also it's school has just started. I don't know, again, back to you in terms of the dates when it's appropriate. And I know school has started. That's an opportunity to attract especially the new children who have come into the school district and new families. But I don't know if, again, Friday, just throwing it out there to you, Monica, in terms of timing and location for that event.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the feedback, Helen. I know the challenge every year we do talk about September being a challenge. Unfortunately, the National Welcoming Week event is always September, so it's the second week in September. So that makes it challenging. And then, yes, in terms of the day of the week, it's always challenging. But this year, what we at least we have a plan A and plan B. Plan A, if it doesn't rain, it's out and the weather's nice, it's outdoor in front on the lawn. If it rains, everybody's going to go indoors. So we have both. Last year, unfortunately, COVID cases were too big, so we couldn't do anything indoor. And so then with the weather, but yes, very, very good feedback. And would love to pass on more feedback to the team. Thank you. Tony, back at you, or I'm sorry, I think Kelly still has.
Yeah, that's correct.
This is a comment, but has a question mark. First off, I'm for a special session. September sounds good. And so I'm a little bit off topic, but it's because of the reason we're having a special section. And that is, I am getting a lot out of learning about these other organizations. I am simultaneously somewhat antsy about us working together and trying to sort out what we drew out from that and where that can go, right? In other words, not just, I'm feeling passive. And when I get passive, I am not as strong a participant as I could be. And so I'm trying to figure out what I'm throwing out there that maybe there's a different balance in how much we hear versus how much we interact. I know it slows it down.
Right. No, very valid, very valid. That's I'm so happy to have and so grateful to have this conversation with all of you. I think it's similar thoughts. It's like a lot of information that you're receiving. When can we set aside time to process all of it and then make some recommendations? I think you can come up with such great, valuable recommendations to the mayor and city council, right? And that's why. So, what I would like to recommend, but I see Pretty has a comment also, and Christina, we see your comment about definitely if we have an extra session, having it in September. So let me pause to hear Pretty's comment, and then I think I have a staff recommendation to you all to see if what you think of that based on the feedback you provided.
So I think I was probably going where you're going, Monica, but and I think to Kelly's point, yeah, I'm feeling the need for a strategic planning session. So something that is like, what are we doing and how are we doing it? I think the how is like things related to our structure, how we run meetings, that stuff, and then what we are doing. It's a little bit like that internal, like our internal work, and then the external piece. So I really agree. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yes, totally. Yes, thank you, Prithvi. Yes, I think going exactly in the same direction, and that's why I think it definitely. I think it aligns with all the feedback that you received. I do not see this happening before September. Maybe even October having a special session, because then that would give us a little bit of time. You can hear from a couple of more groups. We can do a little bit of homework, and if anyone in this group would like to join me to doing a little bit of homework on, because that's exactly what we are doing. It's basically we are doing like a strategic planning for the equity initiatives of the city, right? And so doing a little bit of research on what's available in terms of literature out there, what other jurisdictions or others have done that maybe have done it already and done it well. What can we learn from? So preparing for like then like a strategic meeting where we can talk about, okay, what from what we learned, the needs that we identified, what do we want to focus on as a group, and prioritize those. As Elisa said, we can go through a prioritization exercise and then also dive deeper into how are we doing all that work? How are we, interacting with community and the public meetings? How are we chairing and facilitating meetings? How, what's the right information when we have guests? How long should the presentations be, and how long should we spend on questions, and right? How can we provide some guidance for those who come to presentations and say, okay, you talk for no more than 10 minutes or, those types of things. So, but I do feel like if for us to do it right, definitely I'm looking at August, I'm looking at either end of September or somewhere mid-October for a special session. What do you all think of that? Okay. Do we even want to go as far as looking at some dates now, or do we want to do that via email? We can do that both. I want to look at what's best for all of you.
I think email would be fine. I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I think that'd be fine to just actually look at some prospective dates. I wish we
Okay.
could do that.
We can, yeah, I'll follow up with that. So on my note, I'll follow up with a visual of kind of like those who are scheduled to attend, to present, and also with a couple of dates I'm going to propose for a special meeting. And I'll also reach out with an ask to see if anyone would love to team up with me and doing some research. I know a couple of you that really love research and are really good at that. And if you would like to team up with me, would love that.
Absolutely. And Lucretia, you have a comment?
Yes, this might actually be something that that we discuss during one of these strategic sessions. But an idea that I would like to propose is to use the flipped classroom model and call it like flipped presentation model, where we commit to watch videos that are created by the different departments prior to meeting with them, and then have questions ready for them so that we're not using up our time to learn about what it is that people do or their departments do, but rather come prepared understanding what it is they do, and therefore we have more time for discussion when we do meet with the representatives from various departments. that would require that we agree to, I don't know, maybe a half hour prior to the meeting to commit to watching these videos that these people would make for us. And then we can have what I would consider and hope a more robust discussion. Because right now I feel like we don't even have enough time to process what we're learning. And therefore we just kind of nod and assimilate as much as we can in the 20 minutes that they present and then move on. It's just a
Right.
proposition.
Thank you, Lucrecia. Any other board members?
I'm just going to make a quick comment. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, it doesn't to tag along to your great idea. I mean, it doesn't even have to be. I mean, I know a video can take a while to produce it, but even if it's like a pre-read, some PDF document or something, overview, presentation, that's just like you said. That just gives us the detail about the entity and whatnot. So that, I would love that. That would be really perfect. If our presenters can come prepared. Not come prepared. Give us a pre-read or a pre-watch before a presentation.
Yeah, like a brief memo, perhaps. And
Yeah.
would that be because kind of like I think the intent of that, we have the intent by we publish the agenda packets in advance. Like tonight is not a great presentation because we didn't have, sometimes presenters don't have a presentation material, but the intent with publishing the agenda packet on the Friday or Thursday before the meeting is to provide you with that opportunity to read in advance. And so would that work if that's published and you have a memo and or a presentation? Would that provide that opportunity, or are you thinking of something different?
Me personally, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I guess I don't feel like I'm asking people to make something different than they would have already provided when we meet with them. Just the way that I'm speaking now, I could, go through the slides and explain what it is that I'm going to talk about, because even if I have the slides and I look at the slides, I don't really know the meat of the topic. I don't know the full content, right? Like I can see, okay, we're going to have this discussion about like who is the mayor, who is the prosecutor, et cetera. But I feel like they provide so much more when they're actually speaking to us, that I would love it if it was possible for them to just speak the way that they do to us, but prior to us actually meeting with them. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just like the flip model that I have experienced in other settings.
Yeah. So perhaps would it make then sense to have this conversation part of that strategic planning special session when we talk about and see, because we can further discuss and make a formal recommendation at that time. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, I know we are really late and probably folks need to hop off meetings. Are we good? So great feedback. So appreciate the extra time and the conversation on this. Let's schedule a special meeting and I'll follow up with an email to you all.
Fantastic. All right. Looking at chat, I don't see any more comments, and we have reached the end of our agenda. I want to thank everyone on the equity board. I mean, it's a lot of great minds. We always have a lot to say. We're all in sync with our different ideas and what we want to do. We definitely want to see Issaquah succeed under an equity lens. And I feel like it's a little bit anticlimactic by ending so quickly and saying, Megan, we thank you so much for your time and your effort on the board, and we're going to miss you. But it would be great to see you involved in the subcommittee, and looking forward to hearing more about your education and just us continuing to learn from each other.
Thank you all so much for allowing me to be a part of this group. It has been an honor and a privilege to work with every single one of you. And yes, I look to keep in touch with all of y'all and see the progress you guys have been making. I mean, just from the plans you guys and what I've heard from our future agenda, I'm just so excited for this group and definitely will keep track of your guys' progress.
Very well said. Very well said. All right. With that said, it is 8:35. We'll go ahead and officially end the meeting tonight. Everyone have a great night. Get out there and welcome someone, put a smile on your face, and have a great night. Have a great evening. Have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next time that we meet together.
Have a good night, y'all.
Good night.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Buenas noches.